John Deere just made a move that's infuriated farmers across America. And it's no exaggeration to say the backlash is already boiling over. What happened? In a shocking escalation, John Deere has issued new warnings and potential legal threats targeting farmers who dare to repair their own equipment without using official Deere parts or services. Yes, you heard that right. The very farmers who rely on these machines to feed the world are now being treated like criminals for trying to keep their own tractors running. This all comes on the heels of a massive push for right-to-repair legislation that's been gaining momentum in dozens of states. For years, farmers have complained about being locked out of their own machinery. John Deere's equipment is loaded with proprietary software that can only be accessed by authorized dealers. And now, according to multiple reports and leaked documents, Deere is doubling down, threatening legal action against third-party repair shops and even individual farmers who try to bypass these software locks. It's corporate control at its worst. The outrage was immediate. Farmers from Iowa to Nebraska are calling this the last straw. One Illinois farmer said, "We're not asking to steal anything. We just want the right to fix what we own." And yet, Deere's legal department appears to be preparing cease and desist letters, claiming that unauthorized repairs could lead to liability issues and software piracy. But let's be clear, this isn't about safety or piracy. This is about profit. Deere makes millions every year through service fees and lockdown diagnostics. Giving that up would cut into their margins, and they're not willing to risk it. What's even more enraging is how Deere is justifying this move. In a recently released statement, they argue that unauthorized repairs threaten the integrity of the product ecosystem. But what does that even mean to a farmer who's losing thousands of dollars a day because a dealer can't show up until next week? These machines aren't toys. They're lifelines. Crops can't wait. Weather doesn't care about software locks. And every delay caused by this corporate stronghold puts livelihoods at risk. Social media exploded within minutes of the announcement. Videos of farmers torching Deere logos and spray painting right to repair on their tractors are going viral. TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, it's all flooded with angry voices demanding change. Influential agriculture groups are now calling for a nationwide boycott of Deere equipment until the company backs off. And with the 2025 harvest season just around the corner, tensions are higher than ever. This isn't just about technology, it's about trust. And Deere just broke it. Even lawmakers are starting to take notice. Senator John Tester from Montana, a farmer himself, slammed Deere on the Senate floor, accusing them of putting corporate greed above American food security. He said, "This is not just a rural issue. If farmers can't fix their equipment, food prices will go up, supply chains will break, and consumers across the country will feel the pain." It's a domino effect, and it starts with software you can't even see. And here's where it gets worse. Farmers who've tried to hack or jailbreak their tractors in the past are now being tracked. Deere reportedly has remote diagnostic systems built into many of its machines, meaning they can detect unauthorized software changes and disable equipment remotely. That's not paranoia. That's a feature. It's like your tractor is spying on you. One farmer described it as having a corporate leash wrapped around your land. That level of surveillance? That's not innovation. That's oppression. Industry insiders are quietly confirming that Deere's legal team is working with lobbyists to push back against upcoming state-level right-to-repair bills. They're pouring money into political campaigns, hiring former lawmakers as consultants, and using every tool in the book to maintain control. The strategy is clear: stall legislation, scare farmers, and dominate the repair market. But the resistance is growing louder every day. Right now, independent repair shops are facing the real threat of shutdowns. These mom-and-pop businesses, many of which have served local farmers for generations, are now under legal pressure simply for helping neighbors keep their machines running. One mechanic in Kansas received a cease and desist after fixing a hydraulic issue on a customer's combine. The fix saved the farmer $4,000, but may cost the mechanic his business. Deere is drawing a legal line in the soil, and anyone who crosses it risks financial ruin. This isn't just a business dispute, it's a cultural war. Farming communities have always operated on trust, independence, and resilience. You break something, you fix it, you help your neighbor. You don't wait for a corporation hundreds of miles away to give you permission. But Deere's latest move is undermining all of that. It's not just about parts, it's about power. And for many farmers, it's become a question of survival. And while John Deere insists they're simply protecting their intellectual property, Critics argue that this is an abuse of copyright law designed to strangle rural America. Under the current DMCA rules, Deere can claim that modifying or even accessing the software in your own tractor is a federal offense. That's right, fixing your own tractor could potentially make you a criminal. And that's the world Deere wants to enforce. The timing couldn't be worse. With commodity prices fluctuating, supply chains still recovering from COVID-19, and droughts hitting hard across the Midwest, farmers are already operating on razor-thin margins. Every dollar counts. Every hour of uptime matters. And now, instead of investing in crops, many are being forced to invest in legal defenses, or worse, give up and trade in their independence for expensive service contracts. And there's another layer that's just beginning to surface. Some farmers are reporting that when they refuse to buy extended service packages or official software licenses, their machines begin to underperform. Slower diagnostics, mysterious error codes, increased downtime. It's not confirmed, but whispers of planned degradation are starting to spread. Could Deere be sabotaging its own customers to force compliance? The company, of course, denies these claims, but the pattern is undeniable. Farmers are being squeezed, and the message is clear. If you don't play by Deere's rules, you don't get to play at all. And in this high-stakes game of survival, that's a threat nobody can afford to ignore. And now, things are getting even more heated. Farmer co-ops in several states are mobilizing, organizing emergency town halls, pooling legal resources, and even launching class action lawsuits against John Deere. These aren't fringe voices. These are the core of America's agricultural backbone. Multi-generational farmers who've depended on Deere equipment for decades. But now they say the trust is shattered. And what's more alarming is that some are reporting retaliation. Farmers speaking out publicly are allegedly being blacklisted by regional dealerships, denied service, or told their warranty support may be limited due to their public criticism. If that's true, we're entering extremely dangerous territory. But here's the twist. Deere isn't just threatening farmers in the U.S. Similar complaints are surfacing in Canada, Australia, and parts of Europe. Global farming communities are discovering that Deere's digital lockdown policies span continents. In Australia, a wheat farmer in New South Wales claims he was unable to harvest on time because the software on his tractor required a dealer reset, and the nearest technician was 300 miles away. That one delay cost him nearly $40,000 in spoiled grain. And guess what? He had the skills to fix it himself. He just wasn't allowed to. That's the root of this crisis: denial of autonomy. These aren't amateurs. Farmers know their equipment better than most techs do. They've been maintaining machinery long before GPS systems and onboard software existed. But now, they're being told, you're not qualified. Not because they lack knowledge, but because a company wants to maintain a monopoly. It's infuriating, and it's igniting a firestorm. Meanwhile, some of the tech community is stepping in to help. A few open-source repair initiatives have popped up online. Networks where farmers and technicians anonymously share hacks, diagnostics workarounds, and software patches. It's a digital underground railroad for farming tech. But it's risky. Deere's lawyers are scouring forums, issuing takedowns, and reportedly pressuring hosting platforms to shut these communities down. So now the battle is online too, with everyday farmers forced into legal gray areas just to do their jobs. At the same time, agricultural universities and rural advocacy groups are sounding the alarm. They're warning that this kind of corporate control could have devastating ripple effects across food production systems. When one company can bottleneck repair, data, and access to technology, it becomes a national security issue. The U.S. food supply depends on the efficiency of farmers. And when that efficiency is strangled by software locks and legal threats, it doesn't just hurt farmers, it hurts everyone. Even more troubling is what's happening with farm data. Several whistleblowers claim that John Deere's control over its proprietary software also allows it to collect sensitive farming data. Everything from planting schedules to yield maps. That data, they allege, can be sold to third parties or even used to influence pricing in seed and chemical markets. Think about that. A single company possibly controlling not only your equipment but your operational data and potentially using it to gain market leverage. If true, it would mark a massive breach of privacy, with implications far beyond the repair debate. The fear now is that if this trend continues, farmers may have no choice but to abandon traditional equipment ownership altogether. Some analysts believe Deere is intentionally pushing toward a subscription model, where farmers pay monthly or annual fees just to use and maintain their machines, much like software licenses in the tech world. Imagine paying $20,000 for a piece of equipment and still not owning the right to fix it, control its data, or operate it freely. That's not ownership. That's feudalism wrapped in green paint. And still, John Deere remains largely silent in the face of the outrage. Aside from carefully crafted press releases and generic statements about customer safety and innovation, the company has refused to engage directly with farmer groups. It hasn't addressed the growing wave of lawsuits. It hasn't clarified how it uses collected farm data. And it certainly hasn't committed to loosening its software restrictions. The silence is deafening, and it's only fueling the fire. But the resistance is growing smarter. Some farmer coalitions are now teaming up with tech activists and legal scholars to challenge the very laws that allow Deere to enforce these restrictions. They're arguing that DMCA provisions were never meant to apply to tractors, that applying software copyright law to physical equipment creates a dangerous precedent, one that could bleed into every corner of the economy. Today it's tractors. Tomorrow it's trucks. After that, maybe even your kitchen appliances. What's happening here is bigger than John Deere. It's a front line in the battle over who controls the tools we use to live and work. And as more farmers speak up, organize, and push back, the pressure is mounting, not just on Deere, but on legislators, regulators, and every company watching from the sidelines. Because if this strategy succeeds, you can bet others will follow. Already, whispers are circulating that other major AG equipment manufacturers, like Case IH, New Holland, and even AGCO, are monitoring Deere's playbook closely. If Deere can get away with locking farmers out and still dominate the market, what's to stop the rest from following suit? This isn't a one-company problem anymore. This is the future of farming being rewritten in corporate boardrooms, one software update at a time. If unchecked, it could lead to a fully monopolized repair ecosystem where every turn of the wrench requires corporate approval. That's not innovation. That's imprisonment. And let's not forget the economic implications. Independent repair shops across the Midwest and South, some of them family-owned for 3 or 4 generations, are on the brink of collapse. Their crime? Offering affordable, fast, local service that keeps farms running. But under Deere's tightening grip, these shops are being boxed out, denied access to essential diagnostic tools, blocked from ordering parts, and now legally threatened for doing the very work that keeps rural America alive. It's a direct attack on rural economies, plain and simple. Worse yet, there's growing concern that this centralized control isn't just about hardware. It's about automation and artificial intelligence. Deere has made massive investments in autonomous tractors and AI-driven precision farming tools. But here's the catch. Those systems are deeply integrated with their proprietary software, which means if the software is locked, so is the AI. And that creates a terrifying possibility. A future where farmers not only can't fix their equipment, but can't even operate it without corporate oversight. Imagine trying to harvest your fields, and the system won't start because your subscription lapsed. Or you're planting crops, but the AI makes a decision based on remote data you didn't approve. This is the kind of future farmers fear, where machines don't just work for them, but control how and when they work. It's not science fiction anymore. It's creeping closer with every firmware update. And while Deere might claim this is all in the name of progress, safety, and reliability, farmers see the reality. This isn't about keeping machines running better. It's about keeping customers captive. The sheer complexity of newer tractors, packed with sensors, encrypted ECUs, and cloud-connected interfaces, has created an ecosystem where the owner has no real control. And if Deere has its way, that control will only slip further into the background. But here's the part they didn't anticipate. Farmers are fighters. They're used to battling droughts, floods, insects, and volatile markets. They know how to push through hardship and outsmart impossible odds. And now, they're taking that same spirit into the legal and political arena. Coalitions are forming. Petitions are spreading. Lawsuits are stacking up. And in Washington, D.C., lobbyists are starting to feel the heat. Multiple states, Minnesota, Colorado, New York, and more, are advancing right-to-repair laws specifically aimed at the agricultural industry. These bills would require companies like John Deere to provide access to diagnostic tools, service manuals, and software interfaces. And for the first time, there's real momentum. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are realizing that this isn't a partisan issue. It's a common-sense battle between monopolies and working people. And the stakes? They couldn't be higher. Because if this movement fails, it won't stop with tractors. It'll spread to construction equipment, emergency vehicles, delivery fleets, and eventually every consumer product in your home. The right to repair is about more than machines. It's about whether we as individuals have the right to own what we pay for, or whether we're just renting our lives from corporations that can turn things off with a line of code. For now, farmers are standing their ground, refusing to be bullied, refusing to be silenced. And while Deere may have the lawyers, the lobbyists, and the legacy brand, what it doesn't have anymore is the trust of the very people who built it. And that kind of fracture, it doesn't get repair with a press release. It takes action. And right now, the world is watching what John Deere does next. And what John Deere does next could very well decide the company's future. Because the backlash isn't just noise, it's an organized uprising, and it's gaining speed. Farm associations across the Midwest are pooling their resources to lobby at the federal level. Some are even funding media campaigns to expose the extent of Deere's software lockdown, running ads on local TV and radio stations with hard-hitting messages like, "It's our land. It's our machines. It should be our right to fix them." At the same time, a new generation of tech-savvy farmers is emerging. These aren't just traditional growers. They're engineers, coders, and digital tinkerers who grew up with laptops in one hand and wrench sets in the other. They're reverse engineering Deere's software, finding vulnerabilities, and building open-source alternatives to dealer-only diagnostic tools. In online forums and private Discord groups, they're sharing knowledge at a rapid pace. Deere may have the patent lawyers, but the farmers have the brains, the numbers, and now a cause worth fighting for. And their reach is expanding. Influencers on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, many of whom never previously covered agriculture, are now picking up the story. Videos breaking down the Deere controversy are going viral, racking up millions of views. One TikTok clip of a farmer smashing a locked Deere screen with a hammer and captioning it, "Let me fix my tractor," was shared across the globe. This isn't just a farm story anymore. It's a tech story, a rights story, a freedom story, and that's why it's exploding. The irony here is almost too rich. John Deere was once the ultimate symbol of American independence. The green and yellow badge represented self-reliance, hard work, and rural grit. But today, that same badge is being viewed by many as a mark of corporate surveillance, control, and greed. And that rebranding isn't coming from outsiders. It's coming from the very communities that once flew the Deere flag with pride. Farmers are even beginning to explore alternative brands, especially smaller manufacturers who are pledging support for right to repair. Companies like Kubota, Mahindra, and even startups offering simpler analog machines are being flooded with interest. In fact, some equipment resellers have reported a surge in demand for pre-2014 John Deere models, those built before the most restrictive software systems were implemented. These older machines are now prized not just for their durability, but for their freedom. They're being treated like gold. In essence, John Deere's greatest threat isn't government regulation. It isn't lawsuits. It's obsolescence by rejection. If the farming world turns its back on them, if the next generation of farmers refuse to buy in, the brand will fade, not with a bang, but with a quiet, costly walkout. But as of now, Deere doesn't appear to be backing down. Recent internal memos hint at the development of even more lockdown systems, stronger encryption, remote disablement features, expanded monitoring of software behavior. They're preparing for a prolonged battle, and that raises a terrifying possibility. What happens if Deere wins? What happens if the lawsuits fail, the legislation stalls, and farmers are forced into total compliance? Some experts warn of a future where every repair must be scheduled through a corporate app, where every machine is tracked in real time, where data from every acre planted is fed into a central server and monetized, and where downtime isn't just an inconvenience, it's a financial weapon. Misplanting windows, delayed harvests, all dictated by software, and billed accordingly. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's the logical endgame of corporate dominance in digital agriculture. And it's why this fight, this now, is so critical. Because if the line isn't drawn here, there may not be another chance. But this time, the line is being drawn. And it's being etched deep into the soil by farmers who've had enough, who are standing shoulder to shoulder from the wheat fields of Kansas to the dairy farms of Wisconsin, saying loud and clear, "We will not be controlled." This movement is no longer about one company or one repair bill or even one broken tractor. It's about principle. It's about autonomy. It's about reclaiming the right to live and work without corporate strings attached. The noise has reached Washington, and while lobbyists fight behind closed doors, the public pressure is surging. Voters are calling their representatives. Agricultural unions are demanding reform, and a bipartisan group of lawmakers is already drafting stronger federal right-to-repair legislation aimed directly at stopping this kind of abuse, not just from Deere, but from any manufacturer attempting to lock people out of their own property. In the face of this, Deere has two choices. They can continue down the path of domination, litigation, and secrecy, risking a full collapse of their reputation and customer base. Or they can do the right thing. Open the gates. Provide access. Empower the people who made them a global giant in the first place. But make no mistake, if they choose the former, they'll be remembered not as innovators, but as the villains who turned their backs on the very hands that fed them. Because the truth is simple. Farmers aren't asking for special treatment. They're not asking for handouts or favors. They're asking for fairness, for the freedom to fix what they own, for the ability to make their own decisions, manage their own land, and repair their own tools without being watched, charged, or threatened. And now, the whole world is watching. The John Deere logo once symbolized the heart of American agriculture. But today, it symbolizes a test of corporate accountability, of technological ethics, and of who really controls the future of farming. The outcome will shape not just the next harvest, but the next generation. This battle is far from over. But one thing is crystal clear: farmers aren't backing down. And if Deere thought they could threaten them into silence, they've just made the worst miscalculation in their history. Because when you threaten the people who feed the world takes notice.